On the 31st of March 2024, a video game called The Crew stopped existing. Not stopped selling, stopped existing. Ubisoft released it in 2014, a racing game the size of a continent. You could drive from one coast of America to the other. 2 million people bought it in the first month alone. And then, 10 years later, on an ordinary Sunday, every single one of them clicked the icon they'd clicked 100 times before, and nothing happened. Not a server delay, not a glitch. Ubisoft didn't delete the save files. They didn't ban the accounts. They deleted the game itself. They pulled the plug on PC, on PlayStation, on Xbox, all at once. And legally, they were allowed to. But you bought it. You paid full price when released. And one morning, it was simply gone. Game over. And there was nothing you could do. So the question is, how is that even possible?
30 years ago, it wouldn't have been. Something changed between then and now, so slowly that almost nobody noticed it happening. This looks like a story about one dead racing game. It isn't. It's about the moment we quietly stopped owning the things we buy, and about two groups of people who never met, racing toward the same conclusion. Nobody woke up one morning and decided that ownership should disappear. It happened one convenience at a time. Games got too big for discs, so they became downloads. Downloads needed accounts. Accounts needed licenses. And before anyone noticed, buying wasn't buying anymore.
A game used to be an object, a cartridge, a disc, a box with a manual that smelled of ink. The moment it left the store, it stopped belonging to them. You could lend it, sell it, lose it in a drawer for 20 years, and it would still work. That object became a service, and a service can be switched off. Permission can be taken back. But to understand how a company can sell you something and then take it away, you have to understand what you're actually buying when you click that button, because it is not what the button says. Stay with me, because this is the part that makes everything else make sense. And it starts with an old, slightly boring word: ownership. When you buy a physical thing, the law gives you a quiet, powerful little right. In Europe, it's called the principle of exhaustion. In America, the first sale doctrine. Same idea. The moment a company sells you one copy, their control over that copy is used up. They got their money. Now it's yours. You can read it, lend it, sell it, give it away, or throw it in a fire. They already had their turn. That one principle is the reason second-hand bookshops exist, and libraries, and once upon a time, the shop where you traded in your old games. Then, games went digital, and companies found a way around the whole thing. One sentence. Open the agreement of almost any store, and you'll find a line like the one on Steam, the biggest store in the world, which reads, quote, "The content and services are licensed, not sold." Licensed, not sold. Those three words are the trick, because if they never sold you a copy, only rented you permission to access one, then that powerful little right never switches on. Exhaustion needs a sale, and they've written in a contract you agreed to without reading that there was no sale.
So the button says buy. It feels like buying, but legally, you rented it. A rental with no end date, no monthly fee, and one tenant who can be evicted at any time, for any reason, with no refund. And you signed the lease. Everyone signs the lease. Nobody reads the lease. Now, surely that can't be legal. Surely a company can't write, "This isn't a sale," on something that obviously is one and make it true. And in 2012, the highest court in Europe agreed with you.
A German company called Ubisoft resold people's old software licenses. Oracle sued to stop them. And the Court of Justice of the European Union ruled something remarkable. It doesn't matter what you call it. Pay once, keep it forever, and that is a sale, in substance, no matter what word your contract uses. The label license does not let you escape the law. Which sounds like the end of the story. The little guy wins. Except the same court left a door open.
It drew a line between two things. Selling someone a copy is a sale, and you keep your rights. But providing an ongoing service, a thing that lives on the company's computers that you connect to, is not a sale. And exhaustion does not apply to services. And do you see what every modern game publisher did next? They made everything a service.
That's what the always online connection was really for. Not just stopping piracy. It quietly converted your game from a copy you hold, the thing the law protects, into a service you connect to, the thing it doesn't. The Crew didn't phone home because a racing game needs the internet. It phoned home so that, in the eyes of the law, you were never holding anything at all. And here's what almost nobody playing The Crew knew. 2,000 kilometers away, in Brussels, a completely different group of people had started asking the exact same question.
Not about games, about everything. Lawmakers in the European Union had quietly begun investigating how companies treat people online. They didn't know about Ross Scott. Ross Scott didn't know about them. Remember that name, by the way.
Because now that you understand the trick, one more detail will land. When players dragged Ubisoft into court, two of them, Matthew Castle and Alan Liu, brought the physical box of The Crew, and printed on the activation code was an expiry date. 2099. Every signal on that box told you the game was yours for the rest of your life, and your children's lives after that. And legally, thanks to one sentence nobody reads, you owned none of it. In 2023, Ubisoft announced the end, and days after the servers went dark, they reached into players' accounts and revoked the licenses entirely. No refund, not switched off, taken back. When the lawsuit came, their defense was the trick said out loud. The players had only bought a limited license to access. Lich ended. A limited license, with the year 2099 printed on it. Almost everyone shrugged and went to play something else. But one person read the same fine print and decided it was worth 2 years of his life. His name is Ross Scott. Not a lawyer, not a politician. A niche YouTuber who'd spent over a decade warning that games were quietly dying. He had one comparison he couldn't let go of. In the early days of cinema, studios burned their own films to recover the silver in the stock. Nobody decided those films should be lost. They were thrown away by the people who happened to own them. Most are gone now, forever. Scott saw it happening again. And to prove it wasn't just one game, he built a spreadsheet. 738 online-only games, around 68% already dead or dying. Of the ones brought back, only 16 were saved by the companies that made them. The rest, by fans. On the 2nd of April, 2024, he posted a video with a blunt name, Stop Killing Games. And immediately, people misread it. He was not asking companies to run servers forever. He wanted one thing. When you're finished with a game, leave it in a state where it still works. Patch it offline, or let players host it themselves. The whole demand was, don't actively destroy the thing on your way out the door. To force it into law, he needed 1 million signatures in a hurry, and it nearly died, stalled at less than half. The thing that almost killed it wasn't a corporation. It was one other man with a camera. His tool was a European Citizens Initiative. Gather 1 million verified signatures across 7 EU countries, and the European Commission is legally required to respond. It climbed fast, over 350,000 names in 2 months, then stopped dead at around 450,000. 45% with the clock running out. Scott was working 14-hour days, watching the numbers flatline. He'd concluded it would fail. Then it got worse because of one video. This is Jason Hall, known online as Thor, on the channel Pirate Software. Ex-Blizzard, building his own game, and in 2024 his channel exploded to nearly 2 million followers. Thor tore the campaign apart. Vague, unrealistic, a threat to small developers. There was just one problem. He had the basic facts wrong, describing it as demanding things it had explicitly said it didn't want. But he was huge, and for a while his video was the first thing anyone saw. New people arrived already believing it was doomed. A confident misunderstanding at the worst possible moment. It almost buried the whole thing. Then, on the 23rd of June, 2025, with the deadline almost gone, Scott posted a 30-minute point-by-point takedown. And this time, the internet showed up behind him. Critical, Asmongold, PewDiePie, even the creator of Minecraft. And the story became one clean question anyone could feel. Do you actually own the things you buy? The signatures poured in overnight, past 800,000. Then, on the 3rd of July, past 1 million. By the deadline, over 1.4 million, an estimated 97% valid. It had worked. But winning the petition and winning the law are two completely different things. Now the campaign had to face the one institution big enough to say no. Remember Brussels. Remember the name. While Scott had spent 2 years fighting publishers, those lawmakers had finished what they started, and it finally had a name out loud. The Digital Fairness Act. Years of investigation had found that almost every popular app uses dark patterns, designs built to push you into choices you'd never make freely. Subscriptions impossible to cancel, fake timers, pre-ticked consent boxes. The cost to ordinary people? At least 7.9 billion euros a year. And now the two stories meet. Because what is killing a game you paid for, if not the ultimate dark pattern? A full price, a buy button, the year 2099 on the box, and a product engineered to be destroyed the second it stopped being profitable. So the campaign made its move. Don't beg for a new law. Take the one already coming and write the demand into it. Fold Stop Killing Games into the Digital Fairness Act. In spring 2026, they got their hearing in the European Parliament. 3 committees turned up, and Ross Scott, the niche YouTuber who'd shouted into the void for a decade, was invited to speak. For a moment, it looked like the system was finally listening. Then, on the 16th of June, 2026, the European Commission gave its answer. No. It would not force publishers to keep games playable. Not proportionate, it said. Instead, it offered a voluntary code of conduct, asking the companies that switch off games to please, voluntarily, stop switching off games. But the campaign wasn't crushed. They'd expected it. Because the Commission isn't the only door. The Commission proposes laws, but the Parliament, the part Europeans actually elect, can rewrite them. And the Digital Fairness Act still has to pass through that Parliament. Which means the obligation the Commission just refused can be added straight back in, as an amendment. Dozens of members had already signed an inquiry demanding exactly that. The fight didn't end on the 16th of June. It just moved down the hall to a room full of people holding a different pen. Strip it all away, and you're left with one very old question. When you buy something, is it yours? For a book, a record, a boxed game, the answer was always yes, because the law said their control ended the moment they sold it. We let that certainty slip so gently, one convenience at a time, one clause at a time. that we barely noticed it leave. So maybe the question was never whether you own your games. Maybe it's why we ever stopped asking.